but it's okay. I'm not that impressed about it.
Yeah.
I just had the desk job to like make a little bit of extra money.
Sure.
But
It's fun.
Building to the next.
It wasn't great.
It was pretty humid. Pretty humid.
I never want to be the person.
it was a nice summer.
Where are you from?
Traverse City, up north.
We're starving. Oh god, this is just survival.
Yeah.
A little bit far from home, but not exponentially far.
Joe's Pizza.
Don't screw up.
I know.
Oh, it's I've had my food.
You can't win all of a sudden.
Yeah.
How's life, man? Pretty good.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm sorry, I realize I never got back to you, but time to grab it. Figure out a time to go drink.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, nothing more recently. Having fun with Halloween.
Yeah, what'd you dress as? Oh, nice. That's awesome.
I had like these big baggy like corduroy brown shorts and the white long yellow long.
You guys, we should you click on the Halloween costume.
Oh wait,
Oh yeah.
okay, I'll be brave. I'll sit first.
I think so. Yeah, I was kind of nervous about it. I didn't know like.
All right. Good afternoon. We will have people kind of trickling in and out during the colloquium, but thank you for coming. It's meant to be a sort of informal opportunity for a select group of students to share their experiences with research projects and especially with some internships. And please, right now is a great time to grab a beverage, a piece of pizza, a piece of candy, whatever you would like. I'm just going to say a couple of words. Welcome. My name's Deirdre Hennebury. I'm the Associate Director of the Museum Studies Program. And one of the best parts of that role is that I get to work with undergraduates both in the classroom, but also in their experiential learning placements, helping them think about internships, helping them consider opportunities, say, to present at conference, which we will be hearing a student share her conference presentation with us. And that's absolutely one of the best facets of the work that I do, is seeing how we can expand what happens in the class to out there in the real world. The Museum Studies program, we have this minor, and here's the webpage, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, but I do want to highlight a few things for students because I would love to see more of you on our website. Specifically, a couple things just about electives. If you're looking for electives, we do have the Winter 2026 PDF posted, so feel free to check out which courses might be appealing to you, and I'm also happy to discuss those. I also want to point out this blog. We've got a blog that's shared with the graduate program, and I have had some fantastic blog posts from undergraduate students in the past, but you'll notice 2022, I would love to have something a little more current. So I think our most recent undergraduate was Christiana, and that was just a year and a half ago. So if you're interested in writing a blog post about your internship experience, about an exhibition that you would like to review or share with your colleagues, reach out to me and I would love to connect you with our blog editor. Our blog editor is someone who will work closely with you. We're not just going to throw you in the deep water. You'll get lots of support. I also wanted to point out in the internship tab on our website, we have just a huge thank you to Christy Alkins sitting over here, who is the program assistant. For our highlighted internships, we are working on a slightly different format. still a work in progress, but we're getting there. We'd love to feature some of your internships in this site. This is a place where your colleagues, but also prospective students who are like, hey, is museum studies right for me, might click here and be like, wow, this student, what they did really resonates with what my aspirations are. So please consider, and if you want more information, please reach out to me. Okay, enough about the website, and I need to stop talking now so we can hear from all of you. But I did just want to highlight that for many of the lightning talks that we're about to hear, this comes from this Museums 409. It's a practicum in museums, which is a requirement of the museum studies minor. Oh, come on in. Great, thank you for joining us. There is pizza and beverages on the side as well. So what we're going to be, this practicum for most students, it takes the form of an internship in a museum, archive, gallery, or other kinds of cultural collections. So we take a very sort of broad and holistic view to what museum studies is. And so in the following presentations, we're going to hear from a wide range of internships, but also the students coming from many different programs, which I think is a really wonderful illustration of how interdisciplinary the museum studies program is. So let's jump in then. We're going to start with Naomi, and so I will be running up and down just to switch between presentations, and students will share their work, and we'll have opportunity for a couple of questions, and then we'll move on to the next one, as befits a lightning talk. All right, Naomi.
Thank you. Hi. You have to hit the purple. Yeah. Awesome. I have no
advance here, or see if this might not work for.
I'll just use that. Cool. Thank you. Hey. Hi. My name is Naomi. I'm a senior here at U of M. I'm studying ecology and evolutionary biology. My minor is museum studies. And this past summer, I did an internship at MBGNA. What is MBGNA? MBGNA is Mathi Botanical Gardens and Nichols Arboretum. It's the university's botanical gardens. It's about 300 acres. It has 11 outdoor gardens. And I was a conservatory and collections intern. Where in the gardens did I work? I worked in the conservatory, as the title suggests. And then we have 5 greenhouses, heated greenhouses, and I worked in greenhouse 1, which houses all of our research plants that researchers at the university can come and use the space to do their experiments. So I took care of all of those plants. And then one of our outdoor gardens is called the Broader Impacts Garden. It was formerly known as the Medicinal Garden, if any of you have been there and seen that. Yeah. The Broader Impacts Garden is meant to highlight researchers' work that usually the public doesn't have access to. So they can come to the Broader Impacts Garden and get an insight into what researchers are doing with all of those plants in the back greenhouses. This is a map overview of the gardens. The middle picture there is a picture I took maybe on my last day or something of the conservatory itself as viewed from the front. So this is our tropical house. The conservatory has 3 house biomes: the tropical house, the temperate house, and the desert house. That picture there is 2 of my coworkers. The conservatory team was 4 people this summer. The person all the way on the far end is Michael Palmer. He's the head horticulturist of the conservatory. He also runs all of the research programming. He has been a horticulturist at Mathi for 30 years. And the people there are Mary and Jill. Mary is the technician in the conservatory, and Jill was my co-intern. Jill is sitting on the ladder, and Mary is on the ground, and we were harvesting bananas that day. Yeah, okay. Okay, what did I do in my role? So you can see that the daily side of my role is very short. There was only a couple things that we did every single day. So every day we watered the whole conservatory, and then we watered the greenhouse. And then every morning we would sweep. And then hopefully every day we weeded, because that's important, but maybe there's other stuff going on, so we did our best. But then, beyond that, what we did day to day was hugely variable, and most days we actually did something new. So the number of new things that I did was insane. The skills that I gained were innumerable. So other things that we did, once a week we fertilized the conservatory and greenhouses. About once a week we did a large pruning of the conservatory because it's such a wonderful environment. Everything just wants to grow so fast, and we can't really let it because it's a contained space. We would take compost where it needed to go. We would mulch the outdoor gardens. We would repot plants that needed to be repotted, sow new seeds and germinate new plants. And then outside of like handling actual plants, we did a little bit of research with Mike has this sort of collection of seeds that people just have given him over the years because they're like, oh, you're a horticulturist, you'll know what to do with these. And they go on walks and they come back with handfuls of seeds and they put them in a Ziploc bag and they label it seed. And they give it to him. So he gave us a gallon bag of those. And he said, we made an Excel sheet of germination. First we figured out what everything was and we labeled it properly. And then we determined germination requirements so that he could figure out if there was anything interesting to add to the collection in that seed collection. Something else cool we did was over the course of the summer, we wrote SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedure for our researchers who come and use the space in the gardens. I'll talk about that in a second. And then we also do IPM, Integrated Pest Management, which I learned so much about. It's this holistic philosophy of how to handle pest and disease in greenhouse growing. So we spray for certain things, and we quarantine, and we do all sorts of stuff. Okay, more skills, because all I did was learn. It was awesome. Hard skills that I gained that I had no idea that this was going to happen, but I got certified to drive a tractor because at the beginning of the summer, I asked if they have a tractor, and I said, hey, I'd like to learn how to drive the tractor. And our boss, Doug, who's the head of the horticulture department, said, I like your attitude. And he said, absolutely. So I learned how to drive a tractor. That was awesome. We used the forklift with a bucket attachment and a forklift attachment to move compost around and to move mulch around, so I learned to do that. And then, similar thing of like the natural areas gets to use chainsaws. I want to learn how to use a chainsaw. So now I'm certified to use a chainsaw. There's me using a chainsaw. I sent that to my mom, and she said, what are you doing? And then the other wonderful thing about this program is that we did all of this stuff that was deeply related, but like sort of to the left of our actual daily duties. So towards the beginning of the internship, a really cool thing that myself and my co-intern Jill did was sit in on a curation committee meeting for the conservatory, where myself, Mike, the head curator, Jill, and the head of like sort of design and interpretation had a really, really, really interesting discussion about this researcher's really interesting collection and what potential exhibit could be designed around it. And the exhibit didn't end up happening, but it was super interesting to get to see that side of curation and just brainstorming and what does the public need and how can they best learn and what can we give them. So that was really cool. I also got to work with the education department because they were like, hey, if you ever want to do this, let us know. And I love working in education. Every job I've had has been working in education. So I got to lead some nature play educational programming for kids where we learned all about, what did we do in those programs? We learned about biodiversity, and that was fun. The head of the children's garden has this really wonderful foundational philosophy of nature play that there's this wonderful literature around this that she has, such a deep understanding of, and she really puts it into practice in the children's garden. So she gave us a tour of the children's garden, and we got to learn all about that, and then I had a sit-down conversation with her about that, and it was so interesting, and she's very cool. So that's just another way in which, like, that garden looks a little bit like, oh yeah, obviously kids play here. Like, this is a little bit of like the woods, and it looks like the woods. But she does it so intentionally, and it's very much curated for kids so that they can maximize learning through play. It's very cool. What else? Oh yes, we had lunch and learns with the directors of the gardens, with the natural areas team, the farm team, the development team, the outreach team. We were just learning from everybody all the time. It was awesome. Working with my co-intern Jill was just amazing because she's had a very different life path than me, and so she's worked in large-scale greenhouse growing and has that really different perspective than I do, so I just learned so much from her. It was amazing. And then this was just this other fantastic surprise. Doug, the head of horticulture, has created the most wonderful working environment in the horticulture team, that everybody on that team just loves coming into work every day. And I really attribute a lot of that to Doug. He brings in donuts. We do chocolate club where we rate and review chocolate bars. We go on field trips. If you have an idea, he needs to hear it. If you want to learn something new, he needs to help you learn that. Like, he's awesome. So I did some career development stuff with him as well. He's a very cool guy. And then in that vein, sorry, if I go over time, just let me know.
You have about a minute.
Okay, cool. We're almost done. This is the last slide, I think. We went on a bunch of field trips to see other gardens and see what they do and why it's different than what we do. This is a picture of us at Belle Isle, where we spoke with the director there and learned how they curate really differently than us, because we curate for education and they curate for just a beautiful space for the public to come and get away. And so it's just really different styles, and that was cool. We went to Riverbend Gardens, which is the property of a gentleman who bought this enormous property and is just doing all this ecological restoration and being a cool guy. And we went to Long Lake, which is Michigan State's garden, very different than ours. They have a massive space and a tiny staff, so they really have to decide what's important and do it. And yeah, it was just learning and learning and learning, and new experience after new experience after new experience. And I don't know what the next slide is. Oh yeah, things I was proud that I did. We repotted the orchid collection, which some of those babies hadn't been repotted since 1997. So that was really awesome. This is Leslie, the orchid expert of the now not so active Ann Arbor Orchid Association. And then on the right, that's me and Jill on our last day, standing above the tropical pool, which we spent the summer kind of working with Mike and Mary to give it a breath of fresh air. And the donor who donated the money for the pool came in at the end of the summer to see it, because they had contacted her and said, hey, this is a before picture, this is an after picture. We've been doing all of this work on it, and she said, thank you so much, this is amazing, I'd love to come see it. So that was really awesome. And then the last thing, the standard operating procedure. Jill and I were seeing sort of a need for a little more clarity, and we made an awesome thing that now the researchers have all this information about how to conduct themselves in the greenhouses. So yeah, 10 out of 10, would recommend. Thank you.
We have time for one question if anyone wants to ask Naomi just a quick one. Yeah, Adrian.
So I have a question.
Please.
I'm sure, when you're discussing this with people, oh, I worked in an aquarium, it was so cool. They're probably like, that's not a museum. So when someone's like, that's not a museum, how are you, like, what examples do you give? Or are you like, actually, it's trying to change the perspective?
Yeah, I actually haven't gotten that question very often, because I think I maybe preface with, yeah, I worked at a botanical gardens this summer. It was so awesome. It matches so well with my museum studies minor, because, botanical gardens are museums. And they're like, huh? Oh, yeah. but then if they ask me more questions, I would say, well, we have a collection. It's a living collection. We take care of it. We're responsible for it. We accession things into the collection, and then we take care of those things as you would any other living collection, any other collection. We curate that collection for an audience. Our audience is the public, and yeah, I feel like maybe that would get them thinking.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Naomi. Be sure to get pizza. Yeah, if you haven't already, while we get set up here and Erin comes on up. I invite you all to grab a beverage. All right, Erin. Here's a pointer too. And you can clip the mic on if you want.
Wait, what can I click on?
You can clip the mic on to yourself if you want.
Oh, okay.
And then here is a pointer in case you want to.
Okay. Sounds good.
And use the mic so you
Yeah. Hello, my name is Erin, and last year I was an intern at the Stamps Gallery here at the University of Michigan. And let me tell you about it. So my main project was, there was 3 interns at the gallery last year, and we all had different projects, and mine was focused on improving access to the gallery. So the Stamps Gallery is part of the Penny W. Stamps School of Art and Design, and I know about it because I'm an art major. And they used to be kind of just like around campus in various spaces, but a few years ago, I believe it was like 7 years ago, they finally got their own space downtown, kind of right by the library, and this has allowed them to put on longer shows, bigger shows, of more variety. And a big part of their mission is being an incubator and lab for contemporary artists and designers, to explore ideas that catalyze positive social change. That's something that I got from the website, which I've noted there. But so like every year they've got visiting artists that put on a show. They put on faculty shows. We have one on right now. And then also it's a place for students to show their art as well. And there's a big focus on just thinking in terms of like societal change and how that looks in the art world. But yeah. So related to my project, the gallery is relatively new, and it's a very small space with only 3 full-time staff members, including the director, the program director, and the installation expert. And most of the people that work in the gallery are part-time students, including, well, now I'm a gallery assistant there, and other people who are hired on to help with installing exhibitions and things like that. But because of this small staff, they're pretty focused on managing day to day, like getting these shows on. And the gallery doesn't collect at all, so everything is temporary and things move pretty quickly in the gallery. And one thing that the full-time staff noticed was they were kind of lacking in accessibility in the gallery, and also kind of broader of people understanding what the gallery was, where it was, how to get there, things like that. So that was kind of part of what I was investigating. So when I came to the gallery, I had to learn kind of everything that was going on in the gallery. I read the entire gallery program director's handbook, which was just filled with everything on museum education of various levels, and also just the stamp gallery's own sort of policies. And I also was working there pretty consistently just to understand what the environment I was working in looked like. And then on top of that, I did a lot of research into museum accessibility
and various things that would go into that. So I was looking into what does accessibility look like for the visually impaired? What does it look like to the hearing impaired? What does it look like to just the general community? Like, how do people know how to access the gallery? And then through that research, I learned the best way to learn about accessibility in your own space was by talking to your own community. So I started reaching out to a bunch of student organizations on campus who also worked in accessibility, and started inviting them to the gallery and forming connections with them and getting their opinions on things, as well as kind of building various ways and plans for the gallery to continue connecting with these people and doing more outreach work. And with those new connections, we brainstormed future plans for improving accessibility to the gallery. And what I learned from all that was the importance of advice. So talking to people in the gallery and outside of the gallery who have knowledge that is beyond your reach is super impactful, especially like because there's no way I was going to learn about all of the possible needs. So it really sped things along once I started getting to know other people. And that also kind of introduced me to different modes of looking and problem solving within a space, as well as community feedback. So we did some work during my internship at the gallery. I'm still working there, just not as an intern this year, including like we made feedback forms, we formed these connections, and we started implementing kind of fast action things, but a lot of the larger changes we want to make would take more time. So we have this plan written out of things that we're going to do, that we're continuing to do, including improving wayfinding to the gallery. I've made like documents for bus routes and paths and parking. Seating, we're currently adding more seating to the gallery. Creating audio tours and large text options. We've already implemented some large text options. The audio tours are still a work in progress, once again, because we have a small staff. It's kind of a lot to do audio tours for very temporary exhibits. And another big thing is getting automated doors to the gallery. There's currently no button to push to open the doors, so we have to work with the building managers for that. And we're also, this year especially, working on including talking about accessibility in our staff training, so that everybody's in on it, everybody knows kind of what we're trying to do and how we want to be perceived by our community, and how to inform more people that we're trying to make these improvements. So, yeah, this is time for questions, and I've got information on the gallery here too.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions for Erin?
Yeah, so obviously now you kind of have like a plan for accessibility and trying to make it more accessible and more like available to the public. In regards to like wayfinding and stuff, how was the process for looking at that? Was it for trying to like make a plan for it? Did you think of like wayfinding first, or what was the origin idea, I guess, for it?
There was kind of like, it was a combination of things. A lot of the things I did in my internship sort of built on each other. So it was a lot of like getting this foundational knowledge about like museum accessibility, and then sort of connecting that to Stamps Gallery's particular situation, and thinking about like who's our community, who's visiting the gallery, and how are they visiting the gallery. And that was a big thing. And like I made this one document that was like, well, we were thinking one thing that the gallery is currently aware of and we're working on improving is student awareness of how to get to the gallery. A lot of STAMP students don't know where the gallery is, and they get it confused with the street gallery, which is in the Art and Architecture building, which is a bit of an issue for us. So we've put a lot of work into our Instagram page, which is one of the other interns projects last year. We didn't have one before. And I also did a lot of work into mapping routes to and from the gallery for people getting there, because it is off campus. So I've mapped out bus routes, walking paths, time estimates, parking, all this stuff for anybody who might be curious about visiting the gallery. It's now on our website, I believe it's linked. So in like visit the gallery, you can see, oh, how do I get to the gallery? I can get to the gallery in this many ways. So that was part of, did that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Erin. We have the construction noise from Uma, if it's not State Street. So I apologize, but please do use the mic.
Absolutely.
You can advance here.
Thank you.
All right, Thomas.
All right. Hello, everybody. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to thank Georgia for inviting me to come and speak today at the Museum Studies Minor Colloquium. This is my presentation, Summertime at the Kelsey Museum. This is my Museum Studies minor experience that I did over this past summer at the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology. This is me wearing the same shirt. I'm Thomas. I'm from Traverse City. I'm a fifth-year senior. I'm a history major with the Museum Studies and Art History minors. And like I just said, over this past summer, I was able to do an internship with Dr. Will Pestle and Shannon Ness and the rest of the education department at the Kelsey Museum, which was a huge part of my summer and a really great experience for me. At the Kelsey Museum, I was able to generate my own public history, educating about archaeology using the collection and the staff resources at the Kelsey Museum to kind of bolster the Kelsey as a resource for educators around Ann Arbor and in the surrounding Southeast Michigan area. The Kelsey Museum itself, right over here on State Street. If you haven't been, please check it out. It's a great spot. It was originally established in 1928, Museum of Classical Archaeology. It was renamed in 1953 after Francis W. Kelsey. He's the archaeologist whose collection makes up a large portion of the Kelsey's materials. And I really got an intimate look at those materials and how the Kelsey uses them to kind of be a resource for both the university and the community at large. So that was something that I'm actually quite proud of. It was a really awesome experience for me. This is the Tiffany window that you don't usually get to see at the Kelsey Museum, so if you haven't been able to see it, here's a good look at it. Through this internship experience, I helped Will quite a bit revamping the Kelsey's teacher resource guides. These guides are for basically instructors, teachers in the Ann Arbor and surrounding areas looking to use the Kelsey Museum as a field trip spot, resource for kind of bolstering their curriculums. And I helped Will kind of revamp the Kelsey Museum's teacher resource guide for the discipline of archaeology. So we were basically giving teachers kind of a brush up on the basics and core methodologies and best practices of archaeology, which was really cool for me because I've always been a big fan of archaeology, even if it isn't technically my degree field. I mean, I was an Indiana Jones fan. I hope most people are. I mean, I was also able to help the Kelsey Museum facilitate their summer camp programs. It was basically 2 weeks of helping out wrangle 7th graders, kind of teaching them about ancient history, material culture, museums, how museums operate. They were kind of focused around mythology and the discipline of archaeology, so we got to teach them a lot of cool stuff about how archaeologists work in the field, what that field work looks like, how the objects make it back to the museum, how they're presented. We helped them create their own exhibits, which was a lot of fun, trying to kind of like guiding them, but also seeing where the mind of a 7th grader goes when you ask them to present a bone or a piece of pottery or something like that. It was really fun to kind of see how the minds of these younger kids, worked and solved problems and that kind of thing. Through the coursework, Deirdre kind of introduced some of the coursework in the museum studies minor, and a lot of that coursework really helped kind of set the basics of what like my expectations for my responsibilities would be. I didn't really have like a handbook to go off of. Will and I kind of jumped into it and kind of not made it up as we went along, but figured it out as we went along. And so kind of trying to be self-productive and self-generative while also trying to make sure that our resources are actually helpful to instructors and kind of meet state curriculum requirements was a big part of our work, and trying to make sure that what we're producing for the Kelsey Museum actually helps it be a resource for teachers and not just extra info that's unuseful. So this internship was super important for me, just gaining real experience and kind of generating that kind of educational and public history resource. I'm hoping that this will help the Kelsey Museum and the university be, a better resource for teachers and families and everybody in the area. Challenges and opportunities. I was pretty nervous going into this. This was my first experience working in like a formal museum setting, doing any kind of internship work. So I was a little nervous on like what it would look like and what the expectations would be and that kind of thing. But Will and the education department, they were super welcoming. They really let me kind of figure out my process, figure out my plans, work at my own pace while still meeting deadlines and requirements and that kind of thing. So this really gave me a boost in my confidence personally and professionally, and kind of opened the door to me learning about where I kind of want to fit into a museum setting professionally and career-wise. And I think that's about it. Thank you, guys. Questions?
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
So the summer camp programs at Kelsey are relatively new, right? And I see that we have Will and Shannon here, so thank you both for coming over. Even though State Street remains.
Yeah. The treacherous fording of State Street.
We put on our high vis and walk across.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That sounds like fun. So, as part of, speaking of not having a handbook, can you just say a little bit about, what that summer camp experience looked like and sort of learning on the go and any just sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I've always maintained that I'm not the best around kids, so that was one of the things that I was also quite nervous about. Again, not having the handbook kind of was a little bit nerve-wracking, especially when I get the email saying, here's your team training for working with children. But it really was an opportunity for me to kind of realize my full potential and kind of kind of find my own rhythm with working in a demographic, being children, that I don't really have much experience with. I'm a history major, and so a lot of my coursework has been like in an archive setting and not really very public facing. And so having to interact and coordinate like kids in a summer camp setting was something very new for me, but it also let me kind of realize that my like training in other things didn't stop me from learning new skills and kind of realizing the skills that I had already gained. So I think it was very nerve-wracking initially, but also very beneficial in terms of like personal growth and just experience working with different kinds of people, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Such a cute little microphone. It's so petite.
Here, I'm gonna full screen this.
Okay. I think there's one more page back. Maybe a little title page. There we go.
All right, and Greta.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Greta. I'm glad to see I have my little Kelsey family over here. I've been working at the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology for a little over a year now. I started last September, and I have a little collection here of all the random stuff I've been doing. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk about what I've been doing for the past year. But first, let's talk about me. So I'm a BBA senior. I'm in my last year of undergrad at the Ross School of Business, and I've been doing a focus in business law and negotiation with like mergers and acquisitions, but technical stuff. Obviously, I'm also a minor in museum studies, and I'm sort of combining the two disciplines in my thesis. I was one of 8 students selected at Ross to do an honors thesis, yay, and I'm doing a legal comparative analysis of 2 different regulations, an EU regulation and a US regulation regarding illicit trafficking in the antiquities market. And since we're all museum people here, we probably know that regulations are not very effective in curbing illicit trafficking, and so I'm trying to delve a little bit deeper into why. All right, so I'm a student assistant at the Kelsey Museum, an administrative student assistant, and that pretty much means I'm doing whatever, anywhere, all the time, all at once. But day to day, I work a lot in the admin office with Christina, and that's a lot of operational support. So it's mailings, it's record keeping, doing museum communications. I've dabbled a little bit in library organization with accessioning books and de-accessioning books, and then also going through the cash donations that the galleries receive. I'm also part of the social media committee where I don't know if anyone here follows the Kelsey Instagram and Facebook, but you all definitely should right now. Okay, just kidding, afterwards. But I do the copy drafts for some of the captions on Instagram, as well as looking at kind of a more strategic planning, thinking about what we want the social media to look like in the future and the impact we want it to have. That's also why, as part of Thomas's internship, the Camp Kelsey, I was following them around with a camera the whole time for social media and Instagram. I also dabble a little bit in archival organization with Michelle and the collections in the basement. I've helped her prepare artifacts for study, so it's using the Kelsey database, going in and finding where artifacts are located in the collections, identifying them, bringing them out, getting them ready so that researchers from across the world can come and take a look at them. So it's pretty great. And finally, event planning is also a big thing that I do, especially last year. Usually like internal Kelsey events I help with, and this is also taking me into my more project spotlight I want to talk about. I would say the highlight of my past year has been my work for the Center for Community Archaeology and Heritage with Dr. Jeff Emberling and Tiffany Fryer, and I put a lot of information here about what the center is and our goals and what we hope to achieve. So I'll talk a little bit more about like my processing in working there. I had been meeting a little bit with Jeff last fall just for more like career mentorship. And he had mentioned how he wanted to develop the center, and I thought it was so cool. I'm sure like anyone who's taken a museum ethics course or archaeology ethics course could understand why this is like a really cool and dynamic idea. And I was like, well, I'm working at the Kelsey, like let me know if there's anything I can do. And last winter he decided that we wanted to kind of kickstart the center by hosting an inaugural conference and bringing in lots of speakers and hopefully having keynote speakers, so that it can be a hub for discussion and talking about this issue. And so we put it on. It was in March. I would say the conference was a lot of Jeff and Tiffany were definitely the brains, and maybe I was more the brawn in terms of planning and being, getting all the details in place. I had no clue how many details there are when it goes into organizing an event like this, and it was a definitely very busy few months. Little things, catering, like organizing the speakers, getting the word out, creating marketing deliverables, all of that was my responsibility, and I took it very seriously. This was it was a very high priority for me. And the conference was super successful. I was really happy. We had more than 100 attendees, both virtual and in person, which we had lots of issues with. I put a picture of me and Jeff looking really stressed, hovering over a computer, because if you attended the conference virtually or in person, when you saw me, it was usually doing this, which would be troubleshooting issues on Zoom, and definitely not my forte at all, but it wasn't really anyone else's forte either in the room. We're all museum people. So I feel like it speaks to museum adaptability. When you're working in museums, it's being flexible and sort of taking on the positions that you need to take to help everything go smoothly. So that was a big part of the conference for me. But yeah, we had a lot of speakers, mainly from the university community, as well as speakers from like Metro Detroit area that are doing archaeological projects in Detroit. Super cool. One of our speakers was Sonia Adelaide, who I'm sure if you've taken maybe a course on museums that's talked about NAGPRA, she did the like NAGPRA comic that was talking about U of M. So I was fangirling a little bit when I met her. I was like, oh my God. I also organized a speakers dinner after the first day, so everyone kind of network and get to know each other a bit better. And then the second day, we hosted a visioning session for the future of the center. So just wanting to figure out what the future would look like, even deciding on the name of the center. So yeah, it was really awesome. And I'm very proud of that. Okay, what will Greta do next? Everyone's asking that all the time. I'm working on my thesis, as I said, about this specific EU regulation. If you want to look it up, it's pretty cool. And then I'm also in a class called The Business of Art, which is a collaboration between the Ross School of Business and UMA. And it is about the business of art and the art market. But it culminates in a final competition where we all have to present a different art piece, and the UMA committee will decide on what art piece to acquire and then also have on display for the rest of the academic year. And I'm very excited about that. There's also going to be a public voting section of that, so keep an eye out for that, and you could have a say in what the UMA decides to acquire. But if you see my name, Greta Gamazel, next to one, you should be like, let's pick that one. Just kidding, you can pick whatever you would like. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Any questions? Yeah?
So you say you're doing an honor thesis
Yeah.
for business in this round. When that comes out, where do we find it?
It'll be published, so it'll be on the U of M Libraries, like Deep Blue, I think is the database that they have student publications. So yeah, like right here. Should be selected Ross School senior theses, and I should be there. But yeah, hopefully it'll be very informative and really a fun read. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Greta. Let's see, Calvin, I believe you are. Let's see. Just a minute. Your session is loading. There we go. Let's see.
Slideshow.
Thank you. It's a different interface.
Yeah.
All right. And Calvin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about kind of an internship I did during the summer at the University of Notre Dame. Specifically, I worked in the preservation department of the Hesburgh Library. And if you've ever been there, they have that huge mural on the side of the library that you might have seen in pictures. And I worked within the preservation department, specifically dealing with rare books and special collections. Before I kind of introduce myself, or after I introduce myself, I'll talk a little bit about how I got that internship to begin with. So hi, my name is Calvin Steinman. I'm studying anthropology with minors in business, museum studies, and art history. And I'm also a NAGPRA intern. And I heard about both these internships around the same time. So during the summer, I was juggling going back between Ann Arbor and the University of Notre Dame. So I would travel here and back a couple of times a week, or one time a week. Also this internship. And so how I first discovered and got this internship was not how you probably traditionally apply or get an internship. It was not an internship to begin with. They usually don't host internships or interns during the summer, but I heard about this during a summer a few summers ago when I was doing a physics program at the University of Notre Dame, and I happened to get a tour of like this little facility in the basement, and that happens to be where the preservation department was. And I remember that, and this is kind of where taking advantage of these kind of serendipitous moments that you don't really think about at first, but then a few years later you're like, oh, I'm kind of maybe interested in maybe material culture or and kind of connecting these experiences to one another. So during the summer, I worked on a collection of 81 Irish newspapers. And when I first heard about that, I was like, Irish, like go Irish, or Irish? But no, these were actual Irish newspapers. And another kind of thing I was questioning is I'm just working on Irish newspapers the whole summer. I realized that I needed all of that time to actually work on these Irish newspapers because it was very time consuming. And this was identified by a previous curator working part of the library who is no longer working there, but I did get to meet the new Irish studies curator, and I think he didn't realize this was the collection I was working on, and he was thinking it was another collection, but it ended up working out, and I think the material inside this is something he would need anyway. So how is conservation defined in this context? Because I work under the preservation department, but I'm doing conservation. Preservation is kind of an umbrella term, and there's preservation and conservation within it in this department. And so conservation in this context is defined as the physical treatment of material. So that's anything about mending, surface cleaning, deacidification, rebacking, and resewing. Whereas preservation is kind of everything that doesn't deal with its physical being. So it's kind of it's environmental factors and control, how you handle it, and even pest management. I got a tour down in the basement of the rare books and special collections, and I remember just like going along and seeing this humongous cockroach. Like I've never seen a cockroach in person, but it was like the size of this. It was huge. Like, so I'm probably not supposed to share that, but so a lot of these things are out of your hands, and they are aware of these kind of issues, but they're down in like an old building which hasn't been funded to where it needs to be, and they redid upstairs actually where like everything is happening, but the downstairs where the rare books and special collections are millions of dollars of things are just kind of going through these environments. Anyway. So the preservation department that I worked in is separated into 3 categories: the general collections, special collections, and preventative care. I got to work on all 3, but I mainly worked on special collections. General collections kind of dealt with all the materials from 1825 and older, younger, and that's kind of everything in the anywhere in the library collections that need treatment, and they are hesitant about like what they pick up, but the special collections is a lot more selective, and so because there's only one conservator, and the other team, the general collections, has student workers who can help with that, but special collections is only one, and we deal with anything that's rare, I guess, and any type of medium, not just books or as well. So, and preventative care deals with all material as well. So kind of my task during this internship was specifically dehumidifying the whole collection. And these newspapers can get very wrinkly, and you kind of have to it's a very tedious thing, and you have to go through and just like put water on it, like a certain type of water, and then like place things. So it takes a lot of time, especially when you have to also do paper minting. There's a lot of these papers had tears. You can kind of see everything, and some were in terrible condition, and they usually have multiple pages. So if you think about kind of the time span, I didn't get finished until the last day. I finished the last newspaper on the last day, and I was working through my lunches. It was kind of a thing I didn't expect would be so time consuming. So here's an example of a newspaper before treatment. There's like 3 pages there. And you can see there's a huge hole on the top, tears in the middle. And so the goal is to make these handleable, so you can use in like teaching circumstances. University of Notre Dame prides itself on actually using the collections and within classrooms, and not just letting it kind of sit there. So the goal was to allow these to actually be used as material, and how they would, if you handled them, they would just continue to tear. Here's another close shots of it while I was working through it, and here's after. You don't really get to see it exactly all the tears and holes I repaired, but you can kind of see it on the top where there's the coastal paper, which is Japanese paper, and the specific one I used was Tengucho, which is a really thin Japanese paper. I think the thinnest that they had. And yeah, so all of those things. I also got to do some photography. Here's a notebook paper from the 1850s that I brought to kind of test how it works, and so I would be able to take pictures of it. Ink has kind of this weird property where under like certain conditions you can tell it's like maybe iron gal versus another material based on if it shows up under this whatever setting, and for I forget what the specific setting, but here's me working the general collections, doing some rebacking and rebounding. Do you need a picture of that? So I'm trying to speed through everything. And then I also worked on preventative care, so developing boxes and making boxes for the special collection items, and then making display cradles so that a lot of these collections also, we work with museums, and the local the museum on campus, they actually just built a new campus museum called the Racklin Murphy, where they it's a huge building, and I think they're not even finished. This is like stage 1, and they're hoping to expand it eventually. Where they just had the Snipe Museum before, I think. So I also got to make display cradles for the items and monitor conditions. And here's me working at, we did an exhibit at the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana. And it was about the famous head coach there, Newt Rockne, during like the 1930s or 20s, I'm not sure. But here's me kind of attaching some paper to, not paper, manuscripts to display cradles that we made. And we also helped display these and design like certain, so that they could be handled. And another thing they do as well is they do light monitoring. I didn't actually do that myself, but that's another thing they do. And so some of the conservation challenges are you have to, and these I didn't all experience directly myself, but some of the things I kind of saw while I was there was that you have to pick and choose projects. There is a huge library and a huge collection. It's not feasible to do everything that needs repaired in there, especially if you're constantly acquiring more things, which they are. And so you really have to be selective. And there's only one curator there. I think they're also hopefully hiring a new one soon, but one conservator doing all of the work with special collections is just not possible. So yeah, not every item can be treated, and I think I realized specifically with the conservator there was that she was actually never working with, a lot, or when I was there, she wasn't working with the collections. Rather, a lot of her time was actually spent with meetings, doing reports about items that are going on loan or sending back, and then emails and kind of everything else. How much time do we have? Past?
You're kind of at time now.
Okay, great. That's past. I just want to thank the Gladys Brooke Foundation who funded this internship, and thanks to Jen Hunt and Liz Dubé for being so supportive and organizing this internship. They also helped me meet with a bunch of different faculty across campus and different facilities like the museum, the head of archives, and yeah, so I really appreciate them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Calvin.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of this work was very hands-on. Did you have any prior experience doing conservation, or was this all sort of like your job?
Sure. I never had any other experience doing conservation. I was just trying to get more experience doing kind of a little bit of everything. So I work at the NAGPR office now. So I'm kind of like dabbling in a bunch of areas and within the museum world to try to get experience and a better idea about what I want to do. So yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Calvin. And last but not least, we have one more presentation. Siriana, this is slightly different. Siriana submitted an abstract which was accepted. It was blind peer reviewed for the Michigan Museum Association conference that happened a few weeks ago. And so since I had the pleasure of seeing Siriana present at MMA, I asked her if she could also share that here on campus with our community. And so
All right, Syria.
Yeah, it's kind of a beast, so I will try to go as fast as possible. But and I also wanted to highlight some of the internship and conference aspects for other museum studies minors who might be interested. So, my name is Siriana. I'm a double major in Program in the Environment, which is our environmental studies program. I'm specifically focusing on food policy and sustainable food systems. I'm also a German major. I'm fluent, all that jazz. I'm a museum studies minor, and I'm a graphics assistant now at the Clements Historical Library. But when I was originally doing this project, I was not yet working there. So this was through Museums 498 last winter semester, which was an exhibition seminar on art and race in the 19th century. And a major part of that class was working with the Clements Historical Library and the UMA to look at their 19th century collections that dealt with depictions of race. And then ultimately, there's going to be basically they're going to rip out all the floors in the UMA, so they're going to have to reinstall the whole exhibit anyways. So they said, why don't you all pitch to us how you would change it when it has to get reinstalled. And so this presentation, which is what I gave at the MMA conference, I gave it at Clements a couple of times, and it'll ultimately be my pitch to the UMA next winter. So I got this, basically doing this project then, I developed a working relationships with the graphics department because we would go there during the class. I had previously attempted to email my resume and my interest in working in the Clements way back my freshman year. And so some people also remembered me from that, and Sierra had a job opening. And so my advice always for internships, I've only ever gotten 2 opportunities in life through like blind applying, and that was getting into college and 1 internship. Everything else that I've ever done is through cold emailing or relationship building and networking. And so I'm not a believer in applications, I'm a believer in like finding opportunities, making opportunities, and building relationships. So I wanted to give a brief description of what I do. This is where I was doing today. I write finding aids for the Clements Library, so I go through our graphics collections that is not processed. I ensure that it's in a good state, so like I unfold letters so that they don't have, well, they will forever have those creases, but not for the next, they've already been sitting like that for 100 years, but now they will be unfolded hopefully. I put postcards in sleeves, all that kind of jazz, and then I write finding aids. So this is the one on the website that has been published so far with my name on it, because they get updated like every month or 2 months. And it was a trade card album, which is like the early version of business cards. It's very fun. And then because basically like I'd been seeing Professor Henneberry's emails about this, so once I had a 25-page final paper and presentation from the end of 498, I was like, well, I can just use that again. But I would really recommend the MMA conference to any museum studies minors, even if you're not presenting, because it's just a really good time. There's like tons of free receptions at the different museums and experiences in the area. This was trivia night. And once again, it's just like a networking thing, but not in a way that feels icky. Like I now have all this networking because I just like was at a bar playing trivia with all of these museum professionals who work at the DIA and at these galleries in Kalamazoo, and so it was a really great experience. So going on to my pitch, this is Unsettling Histories. I assume everyone here has been to the UMA and seen it, but it's the American and European Art Gallery on the first floor. And it seeks to reinterpret UMA's 18th and 19th century collections for the modern audience. This is very common in art museums right now. As part of our Museums 498 class, we went to New York City and we met with curators from the Met, the Brooklyn Museum, and the New York Historical to talk about how people are recurating their environmental American collections with kind of these ideas of legacies of slavery and colonialism. I specifically am going to be reinterpreting the John McStanley portrait or landscape that is up on the wall there. It has its own wall. It's humongous, not quite this big, but it's near. It is really beautiful, but it is the extent of the Native American representation in the gallery right now. And since it is our only American art gallery, I think that is really a travesty, and I want to pitch a new way to think about it. And so we have Mount Hood, and the Dalles is a part of the Columbia River. On the Columbia River is a watershed and river between Oregon and Washington. And I'm like out of order, so I'll just jump to that part. It is the longest continuously inhabited place in North America. It has been inhabited by native populations for the last 12,000 years. And it is most well known for being the end of Lewis and Clark's expedition to the Pacific Ocean. So John Stanley, who painted this painting, was born in New York, but he lived most of his life in Detroit, so he's known as a Michigan artist, and that's one of the reasons why we have this, because his family is from Michigan and Detroit, and they donated it to us. He traveled around the Pacific Northwest in the 1840s and the 50s for about 12 years in different capacities, as well as on the U.S. War Department Pacific Railroad Survey. He was the resident artist. He was also a guide for Isaac Stevens, who would end up being the superintendent of Indian Affairs in the governor of the Washington Territory. And so he's the one who's, Isaac Stevens is who ended up signing most of these reservation treaties I'll be discussing. And so it's really interesting to look at his friendship with John McStanley. We can see this, I include this photo because the man in blue is holding a fishing pole, which you'll see in the photographs that I've chosen to pair alongside this landscape. And we of course see all these native people in the foreground of the landscape. This is not a complete list, but the native peoples of the Columbia River Gorge are made up of the Warm Springs Band, the Tenino, the Wasco tribes, the Northern Paiute tribes, the Wishram, the Umatilla bands, the Cayusa, the Yakima, the Walla Walla, the Wenatchee, and the Nez Perce. So because it is a river, there is so much movement and migration constantly happening over the last 12,000 years. It is a place of flux and relationships between these different groups. So Cholilo Falls is about 8 miles downstream of the Dalles, which is where the Stanley landscape is situated. It is a composite landscape painting that he painted 20 years after, but it's a good understanding. It's like pretty accurate. And then Mount Hood is down here, so that is what you see in the background of the landscape. And Cholilo Falls is up in the corner, the very upper right corner. So these are photos from the Clements collection by a resident of the Dalles during the 1930s, Sterling Sorensen, that he just took and had in his collection. I find Cholilo Falls to be a good example because talking about Stanley and his complicated relationships to these settler colonialists, I wanted to get away from that. There's a lot of talk about Stanley. There's a lot of, I can just read off how many different museum exhibitions and publications have included this landscape on Lewis and Clark, Artists of the Old West, the epic sagas of the American frontier. Dave Chaburka, who had to leave, and I once found it in this book called Missionaries Toil for Souls and Survival, Introducing Christianity to the Pacific Northwest. So this landscape gets to go everywhere, and so I wanted to leave that all behind and just focus on the landscape itself and place. As an environmental student, I felt that looking at the river would be a really cool way to reinterpret it and also help people from Michigan, who I think have a very deep connection to water in the same way that a lot of these people from the Pacific Northwest discuss, would be cool. So Cholilo Falls is one of the, I said, the whole area is, and this is one of the spots. Cholilo Falls has been used for 12,000 years by fishermen. It has these 40-foot cliffs that the fishermen would build wooden scaffolding on, and then 6 to 12 million salmon would jump up the cliffs every year, which is not even possible to imagine, I think. And there's lots of really cool photos from this time period of just endless salmon as far as you can see. Of course, by the 1960s, they were almost extinct in the region. So a large part of my project is talking about the right to fish and food sovereignty in regards to Stanley's landscape, because we can see canoes and fishing poles and these native peoples and in his landscape. And so I wanted to then connect that to the environmental degradation that comes from settler colonialism and colonialism, because to me those things are so intertwined and come straight to mind when I see these ideas of legacies of slavery and colonialism. I think of the environment. So in 1855, which is a year after Stanley leaves the Pacific Northwest, reservation treaties are signed between Isaac Stevens and different local tribes, some as a result of direct violence and some as, there was a mic for this whole time, indirect violence and just complicated relationships and all of that. But in these reservation treaties, really importantly, they retain their right to fish. So they are allowed to leave the reservations and go up and down the river and go to places like Cholito Falls to continue fishing as they have. And they're able to do this for almost 100 years. And it is respected until the 1940s when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers decided they really wanted to build a hydroelectric dam here. And both native residents and white residents came together to oppose the dam, and it has a really interesting history from an organizing perspective and these different groups and racial groups coming together. But ultimately, the Dawes Dam was built, and it flooded Cholito Falls. Although there are sonar scans today that show that a lot of the falls are still intact underneath, which is really exciting. And then it was a project under Biden, but that's all gone now. So in 1977, after some of these record low numbers of salmon, the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission was founded between the Yakima, Nez Perce, Umatilla, and Warm Springs reservations to continuously restore and manage these tribal fisheries, both for their ecological and cultural integrity. Which this is their logo, and they are a source of a lot of my information, and I want to ask them to write a label for the ultimate exhibition. So these are, I love the photographs. They're in my boss's office. I get to see them all the time. And a really important part of this that Dave talked with us a lot about is interpretation strategies, because even as museum studies minors, I'm sure we've all skipped a lot of labels in our lives. So how to get at these larger ideas and themes through curation and design when text and labels might not be read, because obviously a lot of this will be going into my text. And so I'm also suggesting these contemporary works to go alongside the landscape and the photographs. These are fishnets, Gateways My Children's Yosemite, this beautiful lino cut, and then walking fish. They are all already in the UMA's collection. And I just really want to hammer that this is about fish and our resources and our water. And my joke is always that I want someone to come in and see the words legacy of slavery and colonialism and say to their friend, what does a fish have to do with colonialism? And I believe it has everything to do with it. This is the working design to literally frame, because nothing is going to be as large as the Stanley. It's just not possible, but I don't want things to feel dwarfed, and so then making this kind of framing to literally reframe it. And so then even if people maybe don't get the very specifics or this history of right to fish and food sovereignty, I want to be able to pull these small painted figures out of the landscape and have their photographs, as well as show the river before and after development. So this is a photograph that is in the accession file that a curator just snapped when she was in the Pacific Northwest. I don't even know how it ended up in the accession file because it was just a letter that she had. She doesn't know any of she didn't know any of this history, but she just said, "Here's my Stanley. I found where he was," and obviously we can see the hydroelectric dam. And so many people have been involved in all of this. So especially shout out to Rebecca Zurier. If you're interested in this, her class is offered again this winter for a few more people to pitch to the UMA, so you can take it and do whatever you want. Lots of people have gone different directions. Everyone at the Clements in the graphics department, Michigan Museums Association for having me, the NAGPRA office, who has read through a lot of my stuff and given me feedback and helped me. Yeah.
Remind us, I know you mentioned the sort of outline, but what is the timeline for the rehang of this gallery? So I know there's floors, but...
So the floors are gonna get dug up this summer. And so the hope is that when the fall starts, everything will be reinstalled. Basically, we know that that's a dream because you often find things when you're renovating. So it is the working expectation is kind of January, winter semester reinstallation of the exhibit. So either fall or winter, which is why then one more iteration of Rebecca's class can come through and a few more people can develop exhibit pitches, and then I think we'll be giving them in the March or April or May.
Wonderful, thank you again. Yeah. Well, a huge thank you to all of our presenters. I know some people had to run out
trying to find a time where you have an hour and a half is almost impossible. If you have questions or you're thinking about, oh wow, I want to learn more about what a student maybe shared, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to connect students with presenters. And if you're sort of thinking, wow, what might I do for a possible internship? I'm also happy to chat about that too. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for walking over from UMA. And take pizza on your way out and candy. And I'll see you all around. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. That was great. It's nice to see you kind of projects they're doing. See their read.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a subset to show the variety. Museum Studies minor has to know that it's disciplinary. So that we're and through art. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Also, just supporting the students.
Thank you. How you're.
Thank you so much for
I have a board question, so I don't know if you know so we had originally been told that we were only allowed to
How's all your stuff
collection
together for next time?
because of borrowing.
It's somewhat going. I'll get Sue's research.
If I were to have something super amazing from the beginning of the college year, I think I should
Okay, what's next for you?
Yeah, or but
either the
Now I can connect pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. We've got a friend.
I just want to make sure that you're feeling good about that.
it's not like too many.
I wanted to maybe throw it to them. Cool. Yeah, because they have such a.
How are you envisioning this works in
Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, it was very entertaining.
So I'm imagining.
Especially Naomi's, because we worked together.
So moving to the
museum,
wall
I
to
was
the left,
thinking
so
about
then
longer wall.
and
For the summer,
taking all. So essentially, then taking the whole
Okay, got it.
representation, and then maybe because then also like someone else could.
Of course.
I think there would also be space then for like
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
a case or something along the wall if like anyone in the future wanted to also then add a separate, like native, objects or things like that.
Okay,
All right, Christy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I think I grabbed.
All right, well, talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, there's, yeah. Yeah. It's just gonna go downstairs and be a free for all for the grad students.
Well, I don't want to steal from the grad students.
No, please do.
Here, maybe can I? These are full ones?
Those are 2 full ones.
Are they ones?
One's cheese, one's pepperoni.
Okay. Maybe I'll take one of the full ones.
That's fine.
Which one should I take? Which is more popular here?
They eat anything. I don't know, like I used to know them like really good, like they were more vegetarian, like,
Yeah.
but after COVID, I don't know them anymore. And they don't hang out here.
That's true, actually. I find that even over.
Like they would teach in here and they'd come and hang out in the office while they waited for the rooms to clear.
Yeah.
So
Well, now we're on all like weird hybrid schedules,
Yeah.
including the students.
yeah, so I don't know them like I used to.
Well, this worked out well though.
Yeah.
And this was good. People coming going.
And it's nice to see their like the people they work with.
Yeah, I invited them.
Well,
But enough of them came that it felt like, I'm trying to think maybe I'll take the cheese one.
yeah.
And
It's
then
probably the safe one too.
Yeah, and then, do you want to take some of these for the office? Do you
We
some
have candy
Okay.
downstairs. Brian brought in his leftover candy.
I'll put this in our candy bowl over then at the other office. I noticed, it's interesting because of course the MSP office is locked a lot of the time, but I came and I had a little candy bowl over there and all of the chocolate was gone.
Oh, interesting.
Only the other candy remains. So
I'll put some of this in there.